Okay, the time is now 5 o'clock. I'd like to call this special Board of Select meeting to order on March 4th and ask you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And roll call.
St. Louis.
Kevin Cunningham, and Mike is away, so he is excused. Item C, which is new business, to discuss and act on the proposed operating budget for 26-27 of the town of Plainfield and send to the Board of Finance as required by Plainfield Town Charter Section 10(2)(b). So you have in front of you what is the proposal, and I just wanted to make sure to understand that these things can also change during the process, as we all know. So this is what's being proposed. Do you have any questions on what's being proposed?
No, this time, obviously, if I had, I know you have to be out here very soon, Lisa, so I'm not going to be too long-winded with this. The one thing I just want us to make note of here is, I think now that we've seen that we can have some very rough winters, we know we're in New England, it can happen. It pushes us off to the circumstances we're in now where, we have to have a special meeting, at 5 p.m., which, can certainly work for Kevin and I, but I know there's a number of people who contact me saying, hey, I'd love to be here tonight, but I can't because a 5 p.m. meeting is just not typical in our town government. So, we're doing what we have to do to keep to the process, but I think what we need to make note of for next year is that we need to start, I think, a little bit earlier with the Board of Selectmen. Board of Finance calendar is fine. I was reviewing it. That's fine with the dates, the March 11th date for town budget estimate, due. They have a regular Board of Finance meeting on March 18th, 25th, they have the police department, and so on. So those dates are fine. I think what we have to do is we have to push for starting in earlier February, and this is knowing that we could have some major snowstorms which would throw us off. But at that point, what it would do is it would put us in a better position that if we have to delay things for a week or two, we're still ahead of the game and not having to be at crunch time right now where, part of the issue with, of course, having to have a meeting like this is there's no citizen participation. And I know there's some people who told me that they would have loved to have made it tonight, and they definitely would have something to say, about the budget, but, what can they do? It's like this meeting has not been established very long, and again, it's not our typical type of Board of Selectmen meeting. So I thought they had a very valid point, so I wanted to make that known, that I think we got to start early, and maybe what we need to do is put a date on the budget calendar that says the Board of Selectmen has a meeting earlier to mid-February, which is a formal presentation. I actually like the format in which the Board of Education uses because what they do is in late January, Superintendent of Schools does a formal PowerPoint presentation to the Board of Ed. It's mainly to be introducing it to the Board of Ed, but it's open to the public, and the public actually gets packets handed out to them. They're not necessarily as in-depth as the binders that the Board of Ed gets, but still, it's a sample of what the public gets to flip through and listen to the presentation as it's going. They get to hear what are the major increases, what are the driving costs of it, et cetera, et cetera. And so the point that's been brought up to me by a couple members of the public is that we never really had one of those for here prior to it going to the Board of Finance. And like our first selectman says, we can certainly make changes. We're not ruling that out. I'm sure we're going to have to make changes down the road. It's just, I think the idea is that, for good transparency to the public, we need to try to have a night where we do a formal PowerPoint presentation. We have the capability here to do it. It could be led by you, could be led by the first selectman, but then we'd also have citizen participation there to give people that opportunity to ask questions on what are your initial thoughts on it. And then knowing that after that, just like with the Board of Ed, they get the initial presentation and then at a later meeting, they have to act to then send it on to the next step. We have to, of course, do the same thing. We as a Board of Selectmen have to eventually decide, like we're doing tonight, to then send it on to the Board of Finance. And it also gives us a little bit more time than in the case that one of us can't make it, such as myself or Mike, we can try to schedule a meeting where we have all of us here. Because obviously with this meeting, with Mike not being here because he's away, that's unfortunate because I would really like to have him here, of course, with us to be discussing this. So, in presentation of the binder is fine. There's no issue as far as the flow of that presentation and such, but it's obviously too early to say, and not having gotten the input yet from our other selectmen as far as, are we going to want to see any changes? As of tonight, I'm not proposing any changes initially, with it. So I'm sure, we'll see how the motion goes, but I'm sure we'll probably be sending it forward onto the next steps of the Board of Finance. But doesn't mean that there's not going to be cuts made. We obviously have to see the process go through the Board of Finance, and then eventually we will see if the Board of Finance feels that we need to, cut it back a bit. We will deal with that as needed. So, again, I, as of now, don't have any big objections or changes that I want to see with it. So I revert back to you, Mr. First Selectman, if there's anything else you'd like to mention.
Just wanted to give you an update of what you're looking to do for next year. The issue that we always have is a problem, which is, especially when it comes to purchase services, is that you are always waiting for the groups to actually give you numbers. Sometimes we're still looking at insurance as of right now. So that's not always feasible. You usually get those numbers at the last minute. So in the middle of February, we're not really ready at all at that. So, but I'm open to the idea of what we can do to move it forward. As soon as it's ready, we'll present it. But usually you don't get that. Sometimes you get from the state of Connecticut what they actually are going to give for every different fund. So that's usually late, and it depends on the sessions, how they do their sessions. So we'll try to do as soon as possible, but mid-February is not going to be feasible. I don't see it.
And then in that case too, then we can consult certainly with the Board of Finance, and maybe there needs to be, some slight adjustment here, in the beginning of the calendar. As we get later into the calendar, that of course is not possible because we have the annual public hearing, and then of course the date, when we vote on the budget, that's not going to change. But earlier on, there could possibly be some tweaking, and that's up to the Board of Finance to decide if they want to make any changes to that.
As soon as our budget books are available, we put them online, and usually the annual budget meeting is when the public comes out and asks questions at this time. So if you have nothing in particular that you want to talk about, I would entertain a motion to approve so we can move forward to the Board of Finance as required by the charter.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item 2, discuss and approve an appointment of the Building Code Board of Appeals. So you see in front of you a person who wishes to serve. I think it's a very good fit. So you have in front of you a letter saying that I'd like to submit a letter of interest to serve on the Building Code Board of Appeals. Thank you for the consideration of Rick Martell.
My question on this is, I went online to look at who we currently have on it. Is what's online, is that accurate as far as our current membership of that board?
You have 3 members that are active. Doug Young, I asked him, and he's declining at this point to re-up. Okay. So that would make a 4th member here. I still look and entertain, particularly get another person.
Okay, so if we appoint Rick Martell, he would be filling in the vacancy of Dudley Young?
As the, I believe this is, he's a Republican, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make sure that was.
Yeah. I think there's 2 openings. I think one was Republican, one was, I think, unaffiliated.
Okay.
So either way, we have a person who can jump onto that board.
Okay. That was my only question, so I'll entertain a motion to appoint Rick Martell to the Building Code Board of Appeals.
I will second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And when there will be business, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
508. Thank you.